So I'm going to talk a little bit about a new contract that Tall Timbers has with Pennsylvania and NRCS to come up with certified prescribed burn manager materials. But also I want to put this through the lens of this report. So has anyone seen this report or seen previous reports put out by the Coalition and the National Association of State Foresters? With a show of hands, who's seen these survey reports? Okay, some. I will make sure that this gets to everyone. Who here, by the way, is on my email list for jobs and training? Sorry about that. I promise not to send too many. If you do want to get on my email list too, I update folks on training and jobs, but this has been going on since 2012, and it collects data of all states of fire use, who's doing fire, the impediments to fire. It's really good, so I'll make sure everyone gets that. So through this lens, there is, and actually this was in this last report, and these impediments have not changed much. It's impediments to fire. So you can see capacity concerns. We all have limited personnel, training, weather concerns, resource concerns, lack of public understanding, acceptance, liability, insurance concerns, permitting legal concerns, WUI, population growth. By the way, Florida has we're approaching 22 million people. So if you visit Florida, I want you to bring someone back out with you, just as a favor to me. And then low priority, great presentation yesterday about your state parks. That's how I started my career in the Florida state parks. And that was so true. It was tough to actually do a fire when your job every day was designed on the complaints in the complaint box. And, we tried to get gopher tortoises to write, we need more fire, but it was always, bathrooms need cleaning. And so what's interesting and somewhat depressing to a degree is that these impediment categories existed in the first report in 2012. But what is interesting is that there's a lot of positive news and things you can get out of these reports. So let's just have a map. This is from 2012, and this shows the prescribed burn manager certification courses, which states had them in 2012 when the report first started. And there's 17 states. So some of the certified prescribed burn manager programs fit right into the laws. As you heard earlier from Wes, there's many tie into liability, some don't. And now let's look at 2020. There we go. So now there's 23 states that have some form of certified prescribed burn manager training. And you heard earlier from Wes and Helen, there are these, I view fire in all of these states and all of these users as like a pie. There's different things that each individual really needs. Do you need some more training? Do you need a prescribed burn association? Do you need mentoring, which is important? Do you need increases in maybe a support of certain liability laws? A lot of this and insurance. Who here has interest or concerns about insurance for fire in general? Raise your hand. There's a few, a lot of it's contractors, private landowners, even some folks that work in nonprofits. That's going to, I think, become a bigger issue. But a lot of this revolves around some sort of qualification standards amongst us all. I work for a nonprofit that was based on quail. Burning for quail. Our land manager at Tall Timbers literally burns dressed like I am, and perfectly legal. He's amazing. I would trust my life in his hands. And at the same time, the Tall Timbers Research Station hosts the Federal Prescribed Fire Training Center, the ultimate in federal qualifications. So there's benefits to both of those. And I think a good certified prescribed burn manager program looks to both as far as the art of fire and actually the sort of federal standards of fire based on fatalities and injuries over time. So you can see in 10 years, there's been an increase in the certified prescribed burn manager programs. And I think that's a really good thing in different levels. Some states, I have always been told, like Kansas, for example, has no, qualifications, no laws, and yet they lead the nation in private lands burning. So now let's look at states with prescribed fire councils. This, I had to go in back in some of my old literal slide. For those of you youngsters, a slide is a piece of plastic. And a slide carousel is what you never dropped, ever, ever, ever. And so I found this one when we were actually I was giving a presentation to our first meeting in the early 90s. And so this was the state of states with prescribed fire councils. And I want to say this map is late 90s, early 2000s. So that's not a lot. And, you know, we had interest from other states. What is a council? We agreed when we started our council that we were not going to point fingers at people. We were not going to say, you're burning wrong, you're burning out of season. In Florida, if you come down to us, you want to have a big fight among the fire ecologists, you know, over beer, start the debate of season and frequency. At the end of the day, for us, we have people that burn for cattle, people that burn orange groves, dead orange trees, people that burn for a threatened and endangered species, all kinds of things. Doesn't really matter. That kind of approach took off. And now this is from the this is a 2020 map. Look at that. It's really cool. Things that we never thought would happen. There's fire councils in Washington, Oregon, and California. And through the California Fire Council, those of you who may know Lania Quinn Davidson, another amazing person, that council worked with CAL FIRE, who was reluctant at first, and now they have a certified prescribed burn manager program geared towards supporting private landowners. So much comes from what you can do on the ground. And I think this is, you know, one of the benefits of getting older is that when you see the impediments to fire, when you're faced with the challenges, you go, well, we'll never solve this. This is nuts. But the truth is, it actually does get better. It's interesting. Now at our council meetings, we have people just like this that would never think otherwise. Of course, we're going to work together. When we started our council meetings, our state, that time Division of Forestry, was looking at us like we had three eyeballs. You know, who are you people getting together and talking about fire? It's all about us. And now attending the Central Florida Fire Council, or all three, helps you maintain your state prescribed burner certification. It's a seamless thing. So I think there's this interesting spread of councils and also prescribed burn associations, like Wes mentioned, to basically address what you need as a burner. So let's talk about what Tall Timbers has been contracted to do. And so for us, we will actually develop and provide all materials necessary to conduct a prescribed fire burn manager certification course, which includes PowerPoint slide decks for the classroom content delivery, written instructor's guide, associated materials, student workbook, what you may have seen in other states. Like it was mentioned earlier from Wes, there's a lot of states that have this. The really cool thing is most states have similar elements within these certified prescribed burn manager programs, which is really useful because there is a proposal in the works from the cohesive strategy. All the federal fire folks are looking to perhaps get an NWCG approved prescribed fire practitioner position, which perhaps eliminates some of the incident command suppression elements and gathers together what are the common elements of a lot of state certified prescribed burn manager programs. So that's something in the works that this course, we will be gleaning a lot from existing courses. Planned to be a 3-day, 24-hour course, quizzes, exams, certificate issued at the course completion. That always pops up. So what are we doing now? 2023, we're gathering the existing materials. We're going to recruit the subject matter experts, have a beta version for members of the council in the NRCS to review. Thank you. Back. Let's go back one. Thank you. So the units for this course, again, similar to the other state certified prescribed burn manager programs: burn objectives, legal considerations, public relations, which is huge. I was part of a group that wrote a lot of the first Florida certified prescribed burn manager course. We didn't have that in the section initially because we thought, well, who cares what the public thinks? Funny thing, you really need to care what the public thinks. They drive a lot of what you can and cannot do. In Florida, about 2 years ago, there was a push from, at that time, the agriculture commissioner to shut down the sugarcane industry based on smoke from their fire getting into Miami. You can have feelings, good or bad, for the sugar industry. It's a lot of negatives about it. But what happened was she was really hell-bent on shutting that down based on smoke. And what she was going to do was enact all of these restrictions based on the public reaction to it. So we as a council banded together, ignoring kind of the impact of the sugar industry, and pushed back on that. What we didn't want was a restriction of the ability to use fire. And again, so we do a lot right now of public relations. That section in the Florida portion of the Certified Prescribed Burn Manager program has grown. Safety, weather, fire behavior, smoke management, ecological effects, firing techniques, holding contingencies, including suppression, planning the burn, evaluation of the burn will all be a part of the Pennsylvania Certified Prescribed Burn Manager program. And now in the day and age of access to so many materials, I mean, you could go crazy. If you just type in fire ecology or fire management in Google, you'll be there until you're dead. There's so much material, which I think is good and bad in a way. So what we'll also do is sort of parse a lot of that information based on input from the council and NRCS to provide folks, once they go through that program, here's other materials. Here's access to other courses. I am currently working to develop some courses that are a blend of NWCG material. We have NWCG courses standalone. If you need it, let me know. I've worked with some folks in here in classes I've offered, but there's an interest now from a lot of people, especially private landowners, to learn more. There is an RX 410, a 4-day smoke class, but you know, portions of that could be delivered to other folks in maybe a day or two, just to get a handle on smoke modeling. So there's a lot of stuff out there that we can provide to people. So I'm just going to show you some slides of what the Florida Certified Prescribed Burn Manager program and their stuff looks like. It's a jumble. When we wrote it early, gosh, a long time ago, we have some slides that literally were copied from, some of them from, and now I'm going back in time, overheads, transparencies. And some of the PowerPoints even have those. So we have to go back and retool that. So, a huge part of the Florida one is why we burn. That'll be a part of this as well. Fire behavior, fire laws, that portion has grown in Florida as well. And a thorough understanding, like Wes mentioned earlier, of the statutes, of the rule, of the laws of fire. Florida's got a pretty good one. The prescription itself has all the elements, actually almost all elements in a federal plan, but it's a 2-page document that can be expanded. But it's incredibly important to know the law and the language behind that. People ask, how big is a required fire break? And in the law in Florida is, all it says is adequate, which is great. We pushed hard for that because we didn't want, it's got to be 10 feet. Well, it could be 20 or 30 or 5. It doesn't matter as long as it's adequate. So a knowledge of law is really important for folks burning. And you'll notice on the, what's that? Does anyone recognize where that bottom parts of a fire picture came from? Anyone recognize that? Who here has taken S190, basic fire behavior? That's where that came from. So it's interesting, Florida, the state of Florida, and John Sadler, who is the prescribed fire manager, he was like, I'm going to take this stuff from MWCG materials and throw it in there because it's handy. So what happens when we do that? Now you get, for us, private landowners or contractors or folks that are not part of the federal system, they are now beginning to use similar terms as all of us are using. So again, what I'm seeing over time is this really interesting, the middle of that Venn diagram is growing amongst all of us. Common terms, hey, people show during our council meetings, during the lunch break, we take a look at people's engines and UTVs and how'd you build that? And there's this really cool sharing and coming together of almost a shared, a shared fire knowledge. So Florida just recently started throwing some stuff in from federal fire courses. Ecological effects, that part has grown as well, because as was mentioned earlier, why are you burning? If you're not burning for a reason, it's arson, which is always a joke, but true. So why are we burning? And so like in Florida, we've got a lot of fire dependent species. We got stuff that if you don't burn, that bird in the upper left, the scrub jay, is the most anal retentive bird in the world. It's got to have things perfect, which comes from fire, because it lives in areas that were once the only portions of Florida above water at one time. We got sparrows and gopher tortoises, salamanders, and in the middle of that picture, I always like to show this picture. Everyone see that rabbit? That's a subspecies of rabbit that only lives in the Florida Keys and is highly dependent upon frequent fire in its marsh habitat. Its subspecies, and this is a true story, is Hefneri. I hear some laughs. So the Playboy Foundation sponsored research, no lie, on that subspecies of rabbit. So you now can go back to wherever you work and say that this idiot Zach came to this council and showed everybody a Playboy bunny on the presentation. But we do like to stress that. I mean, again, it's getting to the root of why you're burning. And if people go through this program and understand why, then they will go and talk to the public and, give it. Working with the public is one of the most challenging things that we do, and there's no getting away from it. When I studied biology at UCF a long time ago, I studied ants, by the way. If anyone has any ant questions, I'll be here for the next 2 hours. And I thought I wasn't going to talk to people. I'll be the biologist in the woods, but the reality of it is you have to talk to folks. And so the recent iteration of the Florida course leaned into talking to members of the media, how you talk to people, and which is now in the IRPG, the last 2 versions, has a sheet, how to talk to the media, which I think is useful. And then, of course, everything, and I didn't know this, I guess my picture, so that's me from the back. And so my wife noticed that. She says, oh yeah, I recognize you from the back, which could be good or bad, I don't know. But that's me. And then there's Walt Thompson, those of you who know Walt, with the red helmet. So the conclusion, I go back to the 2021, the prescribed fire survey, which everyone will get in their email. Here's some interesting conclusions from that. The continued use of prescribed fire by federal, state governments, tribes, private burn practitioners across the nation was 9.4 million acres nationally in 2020. Those are the numbers gathered from all 50 states. It's the second greatest total in recent history. So we know these impediments. We know the things that are stopping us from getting fire done. But one common thread amongst all fire practitioners is this will. I think Helen mentioned this, we will get this done, which sometimes doesn't work when your staff of 10 is cut to 5 and you still get things done. Then your supervisor says, well, you did it. But we do. We have this drive to get more fire done. So second greatest total in recent history. But in order to sustain the current number of acres treated and to maybe even increase the pace and scale, while, by the way, people are retiring in different agencies. And, there's this constant, use the Red Queen analogy, we're running as fast as we can in some places just to keep in place. But increased pace and scale of prescribed fire nationwide, capacity deficits, liability concerns, smoke emissions, other obstacles must be addressed in meaningful ways. I'm a big believer in the Certified Prescribed Burn Manager courses in the states. They do, based on the ability to change that material year to year to year, I think they're a great tool to address those in a forum that everyone has to go through, and then they learn sort of the same shared things. So hey, working together, all prescribed fire practitioners and councils across the U.S. can support national and state level policies that will help to continue the last 10 years of momentum behind prescribed fire use. The Coalition of Prescribed Fire Councils, I want it to be a resource for folks. There's so much out there of resources. There's updates on laws, policies. People are beginning to ask those questions about the legal use of fire and where I live and such. And so to me personally, I think where we are now, and again, I thank you all for being here, is that in meetings like this, we can really work together to continue that momentum. And so again, I thank you all for having me here. And with that, any questions? And you'll notice we use horses to do fire in Florida, which is an awesome tool. If you've never lit a fire on horseback, I highly recommend it. It's awesome. So any questions for me? Any questions? All right.